howdy, fellow movie watchers, and welcome to another edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. Now, today on the show, with your lovely co-hosts, myself, Evan Davies, and our favorite Oscar, and I'm telling you, Oscar's expert, Dylan Davies.
Oscar's fan.
You've devoted a lot of your life to the goddamn Oscars, dude.
Yeah, that is very true.
You've devoted a ton of your life to the Oscars since you were a teenager, so respect on that. We are going to be doing a new segment, or a new topic of the show, called Oscars, Opinions, and Retrospective. In this show, we're going to be covering 5 years of Oscar history as we build towards, we're going to do it monthly, so that we're building towards the release of the 2025 Oscars, which is for the 2024 movies that were coming out this year. In this show, we're going to be covering the 6 big categories of every single Oscar of those 5 years. Plus, if there's some categories that we just think were completely done incorrectly or something that we have a strong opinion on, we'll share that as well. I'm going to set the scene of every single year, and Dylan's going to be able to tell us a lot about a lot of these movies and how we're feeling about it.
Just one quick note. For those who are uninitiated, there's 2 ways of looking at the years of the Oscars.
Okay.
Some people do it by the years of the ceremony. So, like,
I noticed.
1995 would be Forrest Gump, even though it's the best picture of 1994.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't do it like that. I do it by the year it came out.
Yeah, that's the way it should be done. It's by movie release. It makes sense. It's just the ceremony happens in 95.
Yeah, it's the best picture or best performance of the year that it came out.
Right. It's like I look at it like a Super Bowl. Last year, Super Bowl Chiefs 49ers happens in 2024, but you're really the champion of 2023 because the mass majority of the bulk of the season happens in 2023. That's the way to look at it. So we're going to start in 1994. So notable movies of that year to come out, the most obvious one would be The Lion King, as it's one of the greatest animated features of all time. We're getting a lot of interesting independent films such as Clerks, The Crow, and then we're also getting the advent of Jim Carrey, as in one calendar year, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and The Mask all are released in 1994. So this is the era of film that we are discussing.
Which, just by the way, that is like maybe the craziest year for an actor ever.
I mean, you want to make a star,
like,
you do it that way.
Huge. That is crazy.
I mean, that's what makes him a kingmaker to this day. When Jim Carrey's in a movie, people pay attention. I mean, shit, they're paying attention to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 because he's in it. That's how much people love and respect Jim Carrey's old work. So, I mean, fucking impressive. That's the scene that we're looking at in 1994. Get us to our Big 6, Dylan. How are we feeling?
Okay, so just before the Big 6, we're going to cover just little changes or things we should mention during the technical categories. So do you have anything you wanted to shout out?
Art direction. Who was the winner in 1994? Because I know the nominee I would pick over it. But remind me, who's the 1994 art direction winner? For context...
For those just listening, I have my Academy guidebook.
Of course you fucking do.
I would highly recommend it. It's called The Academy Awards, The Complete Unofficial History.
It's pretty damn good. It looks impressive. I'm not going to lie to you. It looks impressive.
Art direction is The Madness of King George.
Right. So the way I interpret art direction is it's the visual representation of the film that essentially sets up the atmosphere of the film, how it looks, how it represents, putting you into that world of the film. And there's years that are very obvious, where they're putting you into period pieces, and then there's years where it's very much understated, more modern takes, and you have to do it. My issue with this...
And the Academy has historically been... They lean heavy on period pieces.
You can tell that obvious in this one. Forrest Gump is nominated in this film, which I think deserves it more than The Madness of King George. I went back and watched a good amount of footage on this so I could have an educated opinion, not just said, this is stupid. I went back and watched some footage so I could be like, okay, where are we going? I don't think it actually does that well with half the period piecing in Madness of King George. The movie I think it deserves the most in terms of setting the atmosphere is nominated as Interview with the Vampire. That film just sets its atmosphere so well. It uses dark tones so well, highlights its characters, and really understands the somberness and the sadness of a mortal life that's really hit in Interview with the Vampire. I would have went Interview with the Vampire on that one.
Talk about a movie that we both love that not many people appreciate.
I think it's one of the most underrated Tom Cruise movies of all time. It's so good.
I love that movie. I don't care.
I first watched Interview with the Vampire when I was 15 or 16 on a rabbit ear television in the roof loft of our garage by myself on a Halloween, where I just turned it on and went, what the hell is this? And I just, over rabbit ear fucking antenna television, found it, and I was like, what the hell is this? This looks cool. And I just watched it and I was like, this is an amazing film. My God. And the art direction is what really, it puts you into that world. I think it deserves it far more than the traditional, look at the period piece. Like, this is where I think the Oscars are flawed.
Yes. And just one more quick thing on Interview. They actually cover multiple periods in that film. So it is impressive.
It's incredibly impressive. So there's still a period piece element to it, but you're covering olden day France. You're covering like first settlers in the Bayou plantations of the South, like, and then it goes to modern day New Orleans and San Francisco of the time of '94, and still has that similar tone. I think it's tremendous. Another one, visual effects. Who is my nominee for visual effects, or my winner for visual effects?
Winner is going to be Forrest Gump for that.
Forrest Gump, I can easily see. I think it's just a very different style. I could see The Mask winning that as well, with just some of the spine-tingling, ridiculous imagery created in The Mask. I think that's far more my taste, but in terms of sensibility and seamlessness, I understand why Forrest Gump is...
I'll talk a little bit more about visual effects with Forrest Gump in a bit, so I won't talk about that much.
And then a note here for music. The Lion King for original song has 3 nominees in the same category. Jesus Christ.
Yes, it's not that uncommon, actually. Well, 3 is very successful, but Disney was a juggernaut during the early 90s. Little Mermaid had Under the Sea, Part of Your World, and I think one more, but I can't remember. But they at least had 2. Beauty and the Beast had 2. And so Little Mermaid won Best Song. Beauty and the Beast won Best Song. Aladdin won Best Song. Lion King won Best Song.
And then towards the end of this, we're seeing Toy Story's nominated for a lot of them. Color of the Winds is nominated from Pocahontas. Mulan's nominated eventually. Like, they're just banger after banger of songs in the original song category. So I just wanted to note, it's a good year for The Lion King in terms of music-wise. Elton John did really well in that film. Take us to our big 6.
And I actually do think the wrong song won Best Song, because Can You Feel the Love Tonight won.
It should have been Circle of Life, in my opinion.
That's what I would have chosen as well.
I think it's just a little bit more epic.
Yeah, I understand it. They usually pick the ballad, honestly. So
ballads are great. You can't argue against the ballad.
Yeah, I don't hate it. The only 2 I wrote down that I didn't actually say like I had a problem with the winners. I just said I wish these would have got nominated.
Yeah.
Were Ed Wood for cinematography.
Okay.
And film editing, True Lies. James Cameron's True Lies.
Schwarzenegger, baby.
Flick. Yeah, great action flick. Probably one of the better action movies of the 90s. So,
especially because we're transitioning the early 90s were the transition period that you're still getting original action movies that are really good, and they're
Yeah.
using the old 80s model of get a star and make a movie. And the
Yeah.
90s is where you're
And you're
starting to
getting
transition.
and you're getting prestige filmmakers still.
Yeah. We're transitioning to where you're getting kind of nobody directors that you never heard of. They may have directed one thing, or they're music video directors or something of that nature. True Lies is one of the last ones where it transitions, because you can clearly tell the difference between True Lies and then like 3 years later with Schwarzenegger films, Stallone films, they're not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So those are the only two I had down, and those are just nominations I had thought would have been nice to see. So for the next 5 categories, I'll announce the winners that actually won that year. So we got director Robert Zemeckis, Forrest Gump; actor Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump; actress Jessica Lange for Blue Sky; supporting actor was Martin Landau in Ed Wood; supporting actress was Diane Wiest in Bullets Over Broadway. Have you seen most of those?
Seen
Do
Forrest
you?
Gump. That's it.
Okay, okay.
I will never
You,
argue Diane Wiest because I love everything Diane Wiest has ever touched. I think she's such an
she is
understated,
always great.
phenomenal actress.
Yes, she's always great. You love Tim Burton, so I highly recommend Ed Wood.
Yes.
It's probably his most underrated movie, I would say.
Yeah. That's the thing, is I love that early Tim Burton. This feels like a classic in 1994. He's coming off of so many big hits, and this is his push to make more serious film, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, if you will.
Yeah, it's not really even serious either. It's a lot more zany than anything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check out Ed Wood.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
I do have a beef with one category.
Okay, what do you got?
I think Robert Zemeckis did a phenomenal job with Forrest Gump. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. In terms of just direction, though, I would have went Tarantino for Pulp Fiction. We're not.
That's
We're
the popular choice.
the only thing I think of when I think of best director is the director's leading so much of the tone of that film and doing it.
Yeah,
And I think the reason Pulp Fiction is as good as it is how much of a reign Tarantino has on that film,
yeah,
and creating this almost anthology style movie of connecting all these different pieces together and making one coherent unified vision that keeps the viewer guessing but makes sure they understand what's going on at the same time. I just think that's a task that is so incredible to pull off the way
yeah,
he did, that I think that deserves the win a little bit more than Zemeckis for Forrest Gump. And you know me, I'm a huge Robert Zemeckis fan. I've loved everything I've ever seen him
yeah,
make. So it's not as if I'm shitting on Robert Zemeckis. I just think Pulp Fiction is such a unique film that is carried by its director.
yeah. I mean, I would have stuck with Zemeckis just only because I know how difficult it was to make Forrest Gump. The level of actual visual effects in the movie itself is actually pretty mind-boggling for 1994
Yeah.
because they're using like historical footage, but then they have to insert an actor into it, insert Tom Hanks into it. So I would have stuck with him, but like I said, Tarantino would be the popular choice. Almost everyone says Pulp Fiction should have won over Forrest Gump, so
I would disagree with that.
I'm in I'm in the minority for that. Um, I actually had 3 changes I would make there.
Really?
Yes. So for actress, you probably haven't seen this. I would have picked Julia Ormond. She wasn't even nominated for Legends of a Fall. It's a
Interesting.
Brad Pitt movie.
I do know it's a Brad
Uh,
Pitt movie, and that's about as far as it goes.
it won for cinematography.
Is Anthony
It's this
Hopkins in that
huge.
movies too? It's
Yes,
like they're
and he's
brothers, and
also
they're trying to get him to run the business, and they go off to war or some shit like that.
so yeah. You have Anthony Hopkins as the dad, who's a Civil War veteran, and then you have Aidan Quinn, Brad Pitt, and Henry Thomas from E.T. as the brothers, and it's this huge epic World War One epic. It's set in Montana, and it is just like one of the most beautiful movies you'll ever see. The
Interesting.
scenery is amazing, and she's fantastic in it. Like I usually don't love her all that much, but in that movie, she's incredible. And then supporting actor, I actually would have picked Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump over Martin Landau and Ed Wood.
Okay, I could see
And
that.
the only reason I say that is because I feel like Martin Landau's is kind of one lifetime achievement more than it is you were the best performance. You know?
He got it when he shouldn't have got it because he should have got
Yeah.
one earlier and he didn't get one.
It happens all the time, but it's just always because there always is like a fantastic performance that gets overlooked because of that. Like Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump is incredible.
Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump is the reason Gary Sinise is still relevant. And it's based off of
Yes,
one
exactly.
movie. Gary Sinise, all due respect to him, great actor, but I don't know if I could recall another Gary Sinise performance. I've seen him in other stuff. I'm not saying I haven't, but that is the performance that makes his career to the point where you can still put him on random stuff and people go, oh shit, Gary Sinise.
Yeah. Yeah, most people, if you said, do you know who Lieutenant Dan is? They'll probably say, yeah, I know who that is.
I would probably, I haven't watched Ed Wood, so obviously I can't give it a full-on opinion.
Martin Landau is good in it. It's a good performance. He plays Bella Lugosi.
Hell yeah. I did see that, and I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
I might have to watch this even more. If we're covering Bela Lugosi
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form, that'd be fun.
And then supporting actress, I said I would have picked Robin Wright in Forrest Gump over Diane.
Is Robin Wright even nominated?
Let me look.
I will say that her...
No, she's not.
That's ridiculous. She should at least be nominated.
Yeah.
My thing with Robin Wright's performance in Forrest Gump is, one, it's a testament to the story, screenwriting, and the director for balancing this character. But Robin Wright, when you look at Jenny, there's really no reason you should actually like Jenny. She continues.
Oh yeah, she's a terrible person.
She continually, and I get it, it's the classic man's going after someone that doesn't have the same feelings for her. So there's a lot of meta commentary, especially from a modern audience, going like, why should Jenny have to constantly be looking out for Forrest's feelings? And I get that from a modern context specifically, but in terms of the lens of this film, Jenny continually puts herself in horrible situations.
Yes.
And
well,
yet,
I guess it speaks to like people who are abused as children sometimes fall into a spiral of abuse.
right.
So,
But she continually does things and runs away from positivity. It's kind of, I was just in a private conversation, I'm not going to mention any names, in which someone was speaking about their friend. And they finally had to yell at him a little bit and said, you ruin any chance you have to be happy. Like, you say your goals are to meet someone, have a family, do all these kinds of things. And yet, any time you say you want that, you continually do the opposite and put yourself in a horrible spot. That's Jenny.
yeah,
And yet, there is something to Robin Wright's performance in which she is so endearing and makes such an indelible mark that you understand why Forrest is eternally loyal and grateful to her. And it's special. It's a special performance on Robin Wright's part.
Yeah. Diane Wiest is good in Bullets Over Broadway. She plays like this mobster's kind of clueless girlfriend or wife or something like that, where she's put in a play because she's the mobster's side piece, and she's like really out there and just clueless and stuff. She's good in it, but I just feel like Robin Wright's performance has so much depth to it that yeah. And then
very fair.
just a couple shout outs that I would have liked to see for nominations. I would have loved to see Jim Carrey get a nomination for Best Actor for Dumb and Dumber. That would have been fantastic. And then Anthony Hopkins for Legends of the Fall. I think he deserved a nomination for that as well.
The thing I don't understand about nominations, and I'm really seeing it here when we're in the 5-movie max, is I don't understand why nominations have a limit outside of like Best Picture. I don't get it.
It's because
it's supposed to be prestigious and it's supposed to be selective. I get it, but
well, historically, it's always been the actors decide the nominees in acting categories, and then everyone can vote on the actual category between those 5.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, it is kind of just the prestige of it. The historical.
Because I don't think 6 or 7 nominations kills you instead of 5, personally.
Yeah.
You're still speaking of thousands of performances every year, and you're one of the top 7. It's not. I look at it the same way. You know, going to the Far Out Football podcast, we've done quarterback rankings and other stuff. There's not a true top 5 in the NFL. It's usually really a top like 7 or 8. One is head and shoulders above everybody, and then there's 2 through 8 are all pretty comparable in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to the next class. That's kind of how I look at a lot of these nominees.
Well, you could also just say, why are there nominees at all?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, there's really no need for them. Whoever got the most votes should just win.
They want to recognize it. It's the prestige of it. I get it.
More than anything, the Oscars is a marketing tool for the film industry.
Absolutely.
That's why it was created. So, because when it first started, it was mostly producers that were part of the Academy. So they were just they were looking to make a buck. So.
Oh, it's obvious.
It is a marketing tool.
Same thing. In future years, when we get to, was it 97 or 98, and it's Shakespeare in Love time, I went and watched the trailer for Shakespeare in Love and just trying to get a little bit of a taste of the movie with a scene or two. And they made a new trailer, and it's just like all Academy Award winner, blah 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 blah, and it's after the fact of when they did it, and like it's like Academy Award winner Ben Affleck, and I'm like, yeah, screenwriting, but like that's not Ben Affleck Argo, like this isn't Ben Affleck now, where no matter what, when Ben Affleck's in a movie, you pay attention because it's gonna be good. Like this is Ben Affleck 97, 98, where I'm like, he's done like 2 things or 3 things of note. Like,
yeah, I mean that's how it goes, but I mean it's a good marketing tool. I will say that.
Yeah, it gets you to pay attention to films you normally wouldn't, and I will give them the credit for that. But when it comes to the nominees and stuff, it's kind of like I think it's a big deal when you win, but sometimes when in the nomination process, when I'm looking at the names, I'm like, I don't think that really helped you. Like I saw in one of the years we're about to cover, like Joan Cusack was nominated for a movie. I've always liked Joan Cusack. I think she's great. But like I've never heard like Oscar nominee Joan Cusack. I'm like, has that done anything for her? You know what?
I mean, it might have bumped her pay up a couple $1,000.
Well, good for her. She deserves it. But
yeah,
but it's certainly interesting.
Okay, so then jumping into Best Picture, the actual nominees were Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, The Shawshank Redemption, and 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
It's a hell of
with Forrest Gump winning.
It's a hell of a. I don't want to say anything negative about 2 films I haven't seen. In 4 Weddings and a
good movies.
And Quiz Show and 4 Weddings and a Funeral, they all seem, obviously they're pretty good. They were nominated for an Oscar. But you're talking about a heavy hitting group with Shawshank, Pulp Fiction, and Forrest Gump.
Yes.
And you're of the opinion Forrest Gump deserves that award.
I would have stuck with Forrest Gump. It's a super unpopular opinion between like people who talk about the Oscars and stuff, but I think the achievements that it did, I get how revolutionary Pulp Fiction was, but it was only revolutionary in the style of writing, really.
Yeah.
So, so I tend to side more with Forrest Gump.
Overall, I would say, all due respect to Shawshank, Shawshank to me now lives more in legend and lore of men ages 18 to 27 who, well, at least now into our group, it probably goes as high as 35, 40. It just always seems to be young men asserting their opinion that they know movies, saying like, "Oh, Shawshank Redemption's the greatest movie of all time."
And I think Pulp Fiction has a little bit of that.
I think Pulp Fiction has a bit of that, especially with the Tarantino effect. But this is really, to me, a 2-horse race, not a 3.
Yeah.
And I would still say, yeah, I understand the Forrest Gump. I would still go with Forrest Gump. I think Forrest Gump is a movie you can pick up at any time, anywhere, and it is such an indelible mark of achievement to get you to care about people. And Pulp Fiction does not have that. Pulp Fiction is whiz bang pow. It's sizzle. But when you look at heavy lifting steak to really get you through a meal, that's Forrest Gump. And I would still go Forrest Gump on that.
I cry every time I watch Forrest Gump. It always gets me connected to the movie.
Yeah.
So, like, that shows some kind of achievement.
Yeah.
So then, the only thing, I would have changed 2 nominees. I would have taken out Quiz Show and 4 Weddings and a Funeral. They're both good movies. But I would have put in The Lion King, and I would have put in Ed Wood.
Interesting.
Ed Wood's an out there choice, but I think it's one of the more unique movies of the 90s.
So, to me, this kind of goes to a question of nomination. How do you nominate as a voter? Do you nominate 5 or do you nominate 1? And then you kind of come to a consensus based on everyone's choice.
That's a good question. I actually don't know that.
Because to me, that seems like, I think some of the times, some of the more popular picks or some of the more off the wall picks that are fringe that people would like to do, if they only get 1, they might just go, well, I gotta go with this. But if I was going for just my tastes or something of that nature, maybe an Ed Wood would get in. That is certainly a question that we need to figure out when we keep doing these retrospectives. Perhaps one of us will look that up on their phone instantaneously.
Well, one of the things that I always thought it would be a really good idea to just have a ranking system where, like, if you have 5 nominees, have everyone vote on those 5 nominees, ranking them, and then whoever gets your first place gets 5 points.
Yeah, it's the weighted, it's rank vote, it's choice rank voting.
That makes 10 times more sense.
Rank choice voting. That's what it is. That's what it should be in the country. That's what voting should be in general. So you get the greatest consensus of people's opinion.
Yes.
That's always what it should be. That's why Maine's politics look a lot better as a state than the vast majority of every other state, because they have ranked choice voting. So you get the greatest consensus of governing the people based off of everybody's opinions, which is why we went to Acadia National Park in 2020. And you joined us for that, and it was wonderful to have you join. And I remember being in the hotel room, and we just turned the TV on for like 20 minutes when we were waiting to like get ready to go to dinner or something after going to the park. And we saw political ads, and it was 2 oppositional opponents doing an ad together, being kind. They're like, oh, we disagree on opinions of how to do things, but we can all agree we're all from Maine, and we deserve a good shot of being the best that we can be. And it was like exactly what politics should be, in which is like, let's find a compromise, let's understand. And I think anything voting wise, and specifically the Oscars, it should be that, because otherwise, if you're only given 1 choice, you have to go with the 1.
Yeah.
It's the reason people like ranking shows. If you look at YouTube content in general, you're there for the hot take. You're there for the meat of the opinion. You're not there for the obvious. Like, anybody can go and say, this is the worst movie ever, or this is the best movie ever, or, again, bring it up to the football podcast. People know I'm going to put Patrick Mahomes 1 as the best quarterback in the league. They want to know, who does he put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then where do those people that always get weirdly ranked, where do they fit in his system if they're watching my rankings or someone else's? It's way better if you have ranked choice voting in this situation where you can go, I'm waiting Forrest Gump 1, Pulp Fiction 2, Lion King 3, Shawshank 4, Ed Wood 5, in this scenario of what you created, I'm just making up rankings. But then if you see, but that way, if someone says, I think Forrest Gump is great, but I think it's only 4, you're getting a better consensus to get to where you're supposed to be.
Yes. Do you have any changes for Best Picture?
Best Picture, I would have just put a nomination to The Lion King. I think The Lion King is such a revolutionary film, and what a 1-2 punch. The Little Mermaid already starts the Disney Renaissance, but when you look at animation being taken seriously as film, what a tremendous 1-2 punch of Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King that Disney puts out.
Beauty and the Beast was the first one nominated for Best Picture.
Beauty and the Beast is a masterpiece, and I think Lion King is right there because it is a universal story. And a child can appreciate it, enjoy it, and understand it, and an adult can do the same, and you might be approaching it from different things, but you can understand it so seamlessly that it's tremendous. So I would have given a nom to The Lion King.
Okay. Ready to move on?
Yeah, let's go 95. We'll set the scene. 95. Very.
The only other thing I'd mention about 94 is, if anyone's interested, Tom Hanks always gives a good acceptance speech.
Oh, and I did forget.
He did back-to-back for 93, 94.
Philadelphia and Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
I will say this. We also, in our pre-production meetings, if we want to be official, said we're going to give our favorite movies of each year. What is your favorite movie of 1994?
I would say Lion King.
Okay. I'm going to go... It was a toss-up for me looking at the list. And as a joke, I almost wanted to say Three Ninjas Kick Back because it's fucking ridiculous. But I only watched those up until the point I was like 8. It's a toss-up, and it all depends on the mood I'm in.
What's the one with Hulk Hogan?
That's Three Ninjas 3, High Noon, I believe. Or something of that nature. News. And they're at a theme park, and Hulk Hogan's a ninja. It's fucking ridiculous. That is classic. We make these movies for kids, and we think kids are dumb movies.
Yes, yes.
Favorite movie of 94. A lot of good contenders for that one. I'm going to split it between Interview with the Vampire and Little Giants. They're both great. Wildly different. They played at 2 very different places in my mind. I always like to say, Ab and I both describe me as a walking contradiction. That is a perfect example of I'm a walking contradiction.